Geneticists expected just another royal lineage. Instead, they found a DNA marker in Princess Diana's family that is so rare only 14 people on Earth carry it, almost all from India and Nepal. It traces straight to a woman the Spencers spent 2 centuries erasing. If you thought Diana was just an English rose, this discovery rewrites her whole origin story, and the truth is nothing like what you've heard. In 2013, 2 small vials of saliva arrived at a genetics lab in Edinburgh. The samples came from women directly descended from Princess Diana's maternal line. Dr. Jim Wilson and his team at the University of Edinburgh began the analysis, focusing on mitochondrial DNA, a tiny but powerful strand passed only from mother to child, generation after generation. This DNA doesn't mix or change with each new parent. It's a silent witness, traveling down one branch of the family tree, untouched by fathers or sons. The team used a specialized chip to scan hundreds of markers along the mitochondrial genome. What they found was rare. Haplogroup R30b. Out of more than 65,000 people in their worldwide database, only 14 carried this exact marker. 13 lived in India, 1 lived in Nepal. Now, the same marker appeared in the family of Britain's most famous princess. Mitochondrial DNA is a genetic time capsule. It can't reveal everything about a person's heritage, but it can trace one unbroken line, mother to daughter, all the way back. The presence of R30b meant that somewhere, 7 generations earlier, a woman with South Asian ancestry entered Diana's maternal family. This wasn't a random blip. It was a clear, scientific trail, confirmed by matching DNA from 2 separate relatives. The evidence pointed to a single ancestor, whose story had been lost or deliberately hidden for 2 centuries. The discovery forced genealogists to look beyond the written records. If the DNA was right, then the official family history was missing a chapter. The search turned from the lab to the archives, and the focus shifted to finding the first woman in this unbroken maternal chain. Eliza Kewark was born around 1790 in Surat, a bustling port city on India's western coast. Her childhood would have been shaped by the sounds of ships docking, traders speaking in a mix of languages, and the constant movement of people and goods through the city's narrow streets. Eliza's father carried the Armenian name Kewark, and she signed her own letters in Armenian script, but her mother's line, the one that passed down the rare R30b mitochondrial marker, was South Asian. In colonial India, mixed heritage was common in port cities, but it brought its own risks and uncertainties. As a young woman, Eliza became the housekeeper for Theodore Forbes, a Scottish merchant working for the East India Company. The term housekeeper in Forbes' will did not capture the reality of their relationship. Together, they had 2 children, Catherine, born in 1812, and Alexander, born 2 years later. For a time, the family lived together in Surat, outside the boundaries of British society, but bound by their own quiet routine. When Theodore Forbes died at sea in 1820, everything changed. His will described Eliza only as his housekeeper and named Catherine as his reputed natural daughter. The language reflected the era's strict divisions. Eliza's status and background meant she could never be recognized as a wife or equal. Catherine, just 8, was sent alone to Scotland to live with her father's relatives. She never saw her mother again. Eliza stayed in India, her story nearly lost to history, her name reduced to a footnote in family documents. Yet her bloodline traveled on, carried by her daughter, and through 7 generations, all the way to a princess whose ancestry was far more complex than anyone ever admitted. Victorian Britain worshipped pedigree. For families like the Spencers, any hint of non-European ancestry meant trouble. Eliza Kewark's presence in their history was quietly rewritten. Her name, Kewark, looked Armenian enough, and she signed letters in Armenian script. That thread became the official story. Armenian meant Christian, respectable and safely distant from the social anxieties of the time. The family records told of an Armenian housekeeper, not a woman with South Asian roots. Genealogies published in the 19th century leaned into the Armenian narrative. Family trees, marriage registers, and even private notes avoided any mention of India or mixed heritage. In the language of the day, Armenian ancestry could be explained away as a quirk of the empire, foreign but not threatening. Indian blood, on the other hand, would have been seen as a permanent stain. As the generations passed, the story hardened. By the time Diana was born, the myth was so entrenched that even at her wedding in 1981, official records and biographies listed Eliza as Armenian. No one in the family challenged it. The Spencers had spent 2 centuries protecting their place in the social order, quietly editing the past to keep their secrets out of sight. The real story, written in DNA, waited in silence until science forced it into the open. Royal blood in Diana's family did not flow through official marriages or grand alliances. It came from women who stood just outside the palace walls, mistresses whose names shaped the course of English history. Barbara Villiers, Louise de Keroualle, and Nell Gwyn each held the attention of Charles II, a king famous for fathering more than a dozen children with women who would never become queen. The Spencer family traces its line through not 1, but 3 of these women. Their children were born outside the rules of succession, but their bloodline quietly threaded its way into the English aristocracy. This pattern repeated across generations. Diana descends from Henry Fitzroy, the Duke of Grafton, and Charles Lennox, the Duke of Richmond, both sons of Charles II by his mistresses. The Grafton line entered the Spencers through Adelaide Seymour. The Richmond line came through Rosalind Bingham. These were not distant, forgotten branches. They were direct ancestors, woven into Diana's family tree. If English law had recognized these sons as legitimate, the line to the throne would look very different today. When Diana's engagement to Prince Charles was announced in 1981, the editors of Burke's Peerage made a statement that caught even the royal household off guard. They declared that Diana had more English royal blood than her future husband. The Spencers, they said, were stiff with royal connections. By the oldest reckoning, Diana was not marrying up. Charles was, and the connections did not stop there. 11 generations back, Diana is a direct descendant of Mary Queen of Scots, executed in 1587 by her cousin Elizabeth I. Royal blood, royal drama, and royal scandal, all running through a single English family. The Spencer family's roots stretch deeper into English soil than the crown itself. Their estate at Althorpe has stood since 1508, weathering wars, dynasties, and the rise and fall of monarchs. While the Spencers remained anchored in England for centuries, the royal family's own name tells a different story. Until 1917, the reigning house was known as Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, a reminder of its German origins. Only during the First World War, when anti-German feeling swept Britain, did King George V rename his family Windsor. The change was swift, but the memory of foreign roots lingered. Diana's heritage carried more than English titles and royal blood. Her maternal great-grandmother, Frances Ellen Work, was born in New York City in 1857. Frances brought American energy and a fortune into the family when she married James Roche, the 3rd Baron Fermoy. Through Frances, Diana's family tree reaches across the Atlantic, connecting to United States Presidents John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, as well as to the poet Ralph Waldo Emerson and banker J.P. Morgan. The Spencer line became a bridge between Old England and the New World. Winston Churchill, another Spencer Churchill descendant, led Britain through its darkest hours. His kinship with Diana is more than a genealogical note. It is a reminder of a family that shaped the course of a nation. Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, dazzled 18th century society, her influence echoing in Diana's own public life. This legacy now rests with Prince William. He carries the same rare R30b mitochondrial marker, a genetic thread that began in Gujarat, passed through Eliza Kewark, crossed continents, and survived centuries of silence. But mitochondrial DNA flows only from mother to child. William's children will not inherit it. The line ends with him and his brother. The story of Diana's hidden ancestry closes with the future king, a living link between the past and the present, carrying a legacy that once lay buried and now belongs to history. Today, DNA can restore stories once erased by history. As the monarchy looks forward, the truth in our genes keeps reshaping what we think we know about heritage, identity, and belonging. Even in the world's oldest families, the real story is always waiting to be found. Thanks for watching.